Hey everybody, my name's Mike Montgomery and welcome back to the Joshua Tree Cabin Renovation Series. And today I'm going to be answering the question whether or not hand painting DIY kitchen cabinets is worth it or not. So let's find out on Modern Builds. Today's video is sponsored by GE Sealants. More about that later in the video. So welcome to my kitchen. It is definitely outdated and it is time for a much needed renovation. And the first step in this is to paint my kitchen cabinets. To start, I removed all of my doors and drawers and I'm going to be prepping them first. As you could probably guess, I am not a big fan of this routed inlay on the face of the doors. It's not very deep, probably about 1/8 of an inch thick, but I do want to reuse this material, so I'm going to be backfilling them. After removing the hinges, I applied wood filler to that routed inlay and I made sure it was a little bit proud of the surface. That way I could come back and sand it flat. I made sure to keep my sander really flat and not to use too much downward pressure. That way I didn't dig in. After my second coat dried, I came back and sanded that with 220 grit sandpaper and I really tried to feather the edge. And here you can see the small voids that got filled. And now that my doors are done, I can head back into the kitchen and remove the trim from my cabinets. I made sure to take this off so I didn't damage it because I'm going to be painting it and reapplying it later. I also used wood filler on all of my old hinge points because I'm going to be replacing these later with self-closing hinges. Then I sanded everything down with 150 grit to make sure that it was super smooth. And once this final piece is done, we're going to move on to masking, after a word from our sponsor. And I am very proud to announce that today's video is sponsored by GE Sealants. They sent me this whole kit, including their new kitchen and bath silicone sealant called Renew. And Renew is so cool because you can apply it on top of existing sealants, which means the old silicone doesn't need removed and you save time. From the box, I grabbed a tube of Renew and I applied it to the back of my countertops where the seal has worn out over time. Renew is easy to apply with the self-tooling nozzle, it's odorless and easy to clean with water. After that, I grabbed the handheld bottle from my kit that's great for small projects to seal around the base of my sink. Their tagline is "Don't redo, renew," and that is super appropriate for today's kitchen update episode. One more huge thanks to GE Sealants for sponsoring today's episode. To learn more about Renew, follow the link down in my description, or be sure to pick some up next time you're in store or online at Home Depot. Let's get back to the builds. One product I've been really hype on lately is the masking tape with the plastic attached. This is a 12-inch roll and it worked great on my oven. I also used it to protect my counters and sink even though these will be replaced eventually. I wanted to apply one coat of primer before my cabinet paint. That way I made sure to get a really good bond. I also wanted to cut through that dark color on the cabinet so I didn't have any bleed. Alright, I'm super excited. Let's get it going. I used a 4-inch high-density foam roller to apply this primer, and you can still see the cabinets through this first coat, which is why applying primer is important, not only for bond. Primer is cheap, and cabinet paint is expensive, so it's a lot better to do an extra coat of this and save money. As you can see, I also applied primer to the inside of the cabinets and the shelves. I'm eventually going to be going for a two-tone colorway where the inside is stark white and the outside is a pastel blue mint color. I think it should look really cool. Let's find out. And if you haven't already, be sure to click that subscribe button and the notification bell down below. That way you stay updated with all of the new projects on my Joshua Tree cabin property. I was able to get about 90% of this done with my roller. I did have to cut in a few areas with a brush. I wanted to avoid this as much as possible to avoid brush marks. Back in the workshop, I threw my doors on risers and I applied a coat of primer to the back side of the doors. This routed profile on the edges did make it a little bit tricky, but I wanted to make sure and get a good coat on there and avoid any drips or runs. This primer dries really quickly, so after about 30 minutes, I was able to flip them over and apply primer to the face the exact same way. It was awesome to see these grooves that we filled starting to disappear. And after this coat dried, I used a razor blade to get rid of any drips or flakes in the primer. Then I went back into the kitchen and I applied 2 coats of white paint to the inside of all of my cabinets. Masking the face frame was pretty quick. The majority of it was offset from the case, and I was able to mask the shelves and this top middle cabinet with ease. The paint I'm using is this specialty Behr cabinet, door, and trim enamel in the color Breezeway. Now this is Behr's Color of the Year 2022, and I used it on my front door not too long ago, so I want it to match. Now typically, you would use semi-gloss enamel on any doors, trim, or cabinets, but this specialty paint is supposed to self-level as good as anything else, so I figured why not give it a try and let you guys know what I think. Instead of a foam roller, this product calls for a 1/4-inch nap woven roller, and I got the best one that I could get from Home Depot. The way I did it is I would apply my paint and then do one pass to make sure that I had complete coverage. Then I would come back with a relatively dry brush and just smooth that paint out to make sure I didn't have roller marks, drips, or runs. And this worked out really well for me. And as you can see, I had sawhorses and doors all over the place. I made a few painting stations, that way I could paint everything at once. And here you can see me applying the paint pretty heavily, making sure I had good coverage around all of my edges and then smoothing it out. After 2 hours, I applied a second coat, and this one was just a little bit lighter. I was really impressed after the first coat. I had great coverage. I just wanted to make sure I fixed any blemishes here and got a really flat finish. And now we're on the home stretch, back into the kitchen.
Time to paint the cabinets. Let's do it. Whoa!
If I were doing this project again, I would have used 2 rows of masking tape everywhere I did. That way I didn't make a mess with this 4-inch wide roller trying to paint the face frame. I did have to come back later and reapply some white to touch it up. Overall, I got great results using just a roller the majority of the time, and here's how I did it. First, I applied paint to the face of the face frame. Then I used the roller to make sure I got paint into the inside edges and the inside corners of the cabinets. Now this did leave a drip back on the face frame, so then I smoothed that back out and I moved on to the next section. Oh, and you may have noticed that the cabinets above the refrigerator are gone. You're gonna have to wait and see the full kitchen renovation video to see what I'm doing there. As I worked, I found that the name of the game was avoiding drips and runs. You can get a really quality finish with this paint, with a roller, but just make sure not to make a mess. And as many of you all know, that is difficult for me. All in all, the only places I needed to use a brush was on this board and around that sink area. I got really good finishes. In fact, I wasn't really able to tell a difference between where I used a brush and where I rolled on for the most part. I'm updating to soft close hidden hinges, and the first step I need to do is drill a recess for the hinge to set into. And I'll make sure and leave links to the ones that I'm using down in the description. They're a really good deal and they were pretty easy to install. I'll also be sure to leave a link to the Forstner bit with the auto stop that I'm using. It's really convenient for installing hinges like this.
These hinges are really affordable, which is great, but they are one piece, meaning they don't separate for installation. So I'm gonna have to hold the door in place and screw it in at the same time.
And quick tip, if you're doing this yourself, it's really convenient to grab a dummy hinge and pre-drill where you're gonna be screwing these doors in. That way you don't have to try and hold, drill, and screw all at the same time. This big door had 4 hinges because it was so heavy, but most of them just needed 2. It was really exciting seeing everything come together after days of sanding, filling, priming, painting, and only about an hour or so of silicone work using GE Renew. This kitchen was close to done. One nice thing about the hinges I used is they are super adjustable. After I had all of my doors installed, I came back with a screwdriver and I moved all of them around to make sure all of my reveals and edges were straight and true.
Okay, next I'm gonna take off all of the masking tape and then I am done. Let's go to the reveal.
As a quick reminder, let's check out this kitchen before. These cabinets were dark, dingy, and outdated. This routed inlay was out of date, and now let's check out these afters. The big question for this video is, would I recommend hand painting kitchen cabinets? Is it worth the time and energy? And I say yes. I used 1 gallon of paint and got great results. The wood fillers did a great job, and on a few of them, in certain light, you can catch a little bit of a divot, but when you step away, they completely disappear. If you do paint your kitchen or bathroom cabinets, it's important to update the silicone around your counters, your sink, and fixtures to maintain the waterproof seal. And GE Renew had great adhesion and protects against mold and mildew.
The next thing I'll be doing is skim coating the ceilings, the walls, and painting everything. Then I'm gonna replace the appliances, the countertops, and floors. So hit subscribe, the notification bell, and one more big thank you to GE Sealants for sponsoring today's video. Make sure and check out the link to Renew in the description down below. Bye everybody.